Hello there, Lindell from Fistful of Java. Today we're going to talk about artists' economy or artist finance and the major label experience. I looked up some figures, and right now artists typically gets about 50 cents off the sale of their album. That's about 5%. An album right now runs about $10. Now, that's a lot of money given away to a major label. To put it in perspective, let's say you work for a company and you're expecting $1,000 paycheck, and instead of getting that $1,000 paycheck, you get $50. That's what 5% basically boils down to, and that's why artists like Prince Rogers Nilsson made a big deal about using an unpronounceable name to get himself out of a contract, because with an album, a lot of his albums sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million copies. He getting only 5% would make $1 million off that, while the major label would make $19 million off that. That's a considerable loss. So how does someone who has signed a contract with that label actually make money, the kind of money that we think they make, selling music? Well, they have to go on tour. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to actually leave this location and go on, and go touring around the neighborhood here, and I'll tell you how you make money on tour. See you in a bit. Okay, so now we're on the road. So how does an artist who basically took an L on his album make money? Well, it's fairly simple. The major label will loan the artist money to get started on his tour. He'll rent equipment, gather up all his horses and whatever, and then hit the road. Now, in a situation where you can get $50 a ticket on average price, a 20,000 seat venue will pay out about $1 million. String enough of those together and you can actually make some money. Of course, you have to pay back the major label who loaned you the money to get started. When you get home, you got to pay off all the expenses, pay all the people that you toured with, your band, and all that comes out of your end, not out of the label's end. So at $1 million a shot, 20-city tour, 30-city tour, you hope it sells out. You can make up the money you didn't get on the album. But of course, that's a lot of work and a lot of expense. So what's an even better way to handle this? And that's what Prince was fighting for when he changed his name to the impronounceable symbol, is I want to be able to own my own masters and be the quote-unquote master of my own fate. And so here are some figures that will give you an indication of exactly why that was so important. But again, I think it's time for us to change locations. So I'll see you in a bit. Water sure is calm today. Sure is calm. Speaking of calm, let's talk about this money thing a little more. So, keeping with the Prince example, he was interviewed after he broke off with his label, and he was asked, okay, don't you miss selling all those millions of albums? And Prince made the statement, well, I make more money now than I ever did then. And the guy was kind of confused by the comment. He's like, well, all those millions of albums? He goes, yeah, but I make more money now. So let's talk about how that's possible. A lot of the albums that Prince sold were $2 million. We talked about that in the beginning. And 5% of that doesn't add up to a whole lot of money, really. So let's say in a situation where you make 100% of the money and you only sold, say, 500,000 copies, one fourth of the amount of money, but still for the same $10. That's $5 million. That's $5 million he gets to keep every red cent of. So he's made 5 times the money and sold one fourth of the amount of volume. That's what that young man could not see that was interviewing Prince about, selling millions of albums. It's not about the volume of albums, it's about how much of the money you get to keep. Of course, there are expenses to pull out of that, and that's always been the case, but would you rather pull expenses out of 1 million or out of 5 million? How much more do you get to keep after that? Especially someone like, Prince, who had his own recording studio called Paisley Park that he had built from the ground up, had the best of tools, best equipment, world-class musicians at his fingertips, and knew how to distribute the album directly. So yeah, I don't need a label. Now eventually he did work it out and go back to his label, but the idea there is if I can keep all the money, that's what the goal is. So, okay, that's business economy, or I should say artist economy 101. So let's, again, change locations and wrap this up. So what are our final thoughts about owning our own masters? Well, we've talked about, how artists make money in today's world, especially attached to a major label. Now, let's give you the thorn in the paw. Every now and again, an artist hits a lick. They create an album of such magnanimity that the entire world takes notice. Prince hit such a lick in an album called Purple Rain. Purple Rain sold over 21 million copies worldwide and is still selling today, even after his death. Now, in today's money, $21 million copies at $10 an album to keep it round is $210 million. Now, he was still under contract when he did that album, so his cut is 5%, somewhere between $10 and $11 million. $210 million would have been the take-in. So they would have gotten $200 million, he would have gotten 10, roughly. So money is piled up on the table for an album that you spent blood, sweat, and tears putting together. It's personal to you. You wrote it, produced it, recorded it at your own studio, and someone else is going to reap the profits. Money is piled up on the table, as I said, and basically you get to get the crumbs that fall off the table on the floor for something you created. See, that's the kind of thing that makes a man use bad words, ugly words, and mean it. So this is why, he went off on the thing that he did. He became the unpronounceable symbol. He did what he needed to do to get out of the contract and started making money his old-fashioned way, basically keeping all of the profits for what he produced. And so, that's kind of what was going on there. And for everyone like Prince who went out there and fought the fine fight, a lot of the people couldn't do it. Because of the time that he did it, the world was changing and there was ways to self-promote. There was YouTube, there were mailers, there was, internet, different ways to do it yourself, where in the 70s and 80s, you had radio stations, which were mostly plugged into the major labels. Major labels had the distribution network for the stores and whatnot. There was no workaround. You pretty much were at the mercy of a major label if you got picked up at all. So it's like, well, it's better to make a little money than no money. Well, Prince proved otherwise. It's better to make more money than no money or little money. You know, it's a matter of being smart and savvy about how you conduct your own business. Because when it comes boiling down to it, it is a business. You are a independent contractor when you sign up with a label. You're not an employee. So you have to mind your own expenses. You have to take care of your own things. They kind of front you the money to get you started, but then once you get started, you kind of a franchise of your own. And they make the overages on it. So that's our lesson for today. Hopefully you found it useful, entertaining if nothing else, informative, who knows. If so, consider clicking the like button or the subscribing for more content. Put a comment in there with something you want to hear more about or something you may have a personal experience about, this kind of thing. I'd love to hear from you. But until next time.